Hello and welcome back to my channel, Checks Capture Threats. Today's episode 50 of the Chess Guide, we'll be going over an example game between Boris Spassky and Bobby Fischer. So, we are now going to be going over example games here for every 3 episodes. So, what this means that on episode 50 today, we'll be going over this game between Boris Spassky and Bobby Fischer, and they will have 2 normal episodes like we've had the previous 49 of them. And then that means that on episode 53, we'll have another example game, and then so on. So every 3 episodes, we'll be having an example game of some sort. Now, we've got one of the most iconic ones here due to something Bobby Fischer does. So here, I will not spoil it for you, but we'll go through this. Now, I've got the evaluation bar on the left here, and somewhere on the screen, I will have the brilliant, great moves, or even the percentage, how well they played. I will go through it now real quick just before, but to just say here, Boris Spassky is obviously playing the white pieces and Bobby Fischer is playing the black pieces. So here we go. Now, Boris Spassky is being the white pieces. He gets a 95.8% accuracy in this game, and Bobby Fischer gets a 91.3%. So Boris does do better in this game, really. Now, as you'll see here, there is 3 great moves for Boris, and also 2 great moves for Bobby Fischer. But there is a load of great moves here. Very little, mistakes and accuracies. It's actually only Bobby Fischer that did make 2 mistakes into this game. But let's go through it now. So, we are going to go here to D4 to start with. So it is obviously, this could go into the Queen's Gambit, this could go into anything. The London, for example, here. Now, a very normal move here. This could be trying to play the Nimzo Indian here. So as we see, we reply with a Queen's Gambit type here with Boris Spassky. Now, as we see here, the E6 has been played. Hopefully, also, we've changed the pieces around for these. So for the example games, we will be having this sort of colour, so we can have all of this. I might keep this. If you don't like it, always feel free to try and comment if you want to change ideas like this. I feel like it just looks nice, as it will be a little bit different from the other chess guide video we will be doing. But anyway, back to here. We have played E6 as black, and now obviously looking at this sort of thing. Now, Knight to F3 has been played, another book move here, so everything to plan. D5 has been played too. It looks properly like a Queen's Gambit declined here that's been played. So Knight to C3, and then Bishop to B4. E3 played. He does block his bishop in, but again, it's book move here. You'll see a load of things that they won't matter about, because here, obviously, they're looking at this sort of exchange, and then maybe a Frenchetto all the way up to there. Now, Bishop to D3, followed by C5 for black here. So this whole little escapade here in the centre, where all of these can capture each other here. But at the minute, Boris Spassky and Bobby Fischer does not do anything about it for quite a while here, actually. Now this is where Boris starts his attack. So here it goes back to A5 now. We are seeing positional play here. So he's putting his maybe in a worse spot, maybe in a better spot, but it's an accuracy, they say. And this is looking to play moves like these 2 here. So there's that. Now there is 2 captures here. Simple as there. Trying to just open the game up. Now, there is this Bishop to B6 move here. Now this is just to put pressure on this D4 pawn. So that, obviously now, if we have a look at this, there is a huge amount of pieces going onto this pawn. There's like 8 pieces protecting and attacking this pawn here. So Boris simplifies the whole thing out here and just takes the pawn on C5. Queen trade, pretty much forced. Maybe not entirely, but it's all best here. And a great move, obviously, because it's the only move they say here. Obviously, they can't move anywhere else. And it, has its ideas. Now, again, B4. Boris trying to attack Bobby Fischer here. So, as he goes back to E7, just to also clear up here, if you wanted to know, this was in 1972, this game. It was one of the first games of the World Chess Championship at the time, and there's a whole, if you watch the Pawn Sacrifice on whatever channels there are that you can watch, there will be, it's a very good film that talks about the whole of this World Chess Championship because of Bobby Fischer wanting set venues, set, everything. So, hopefully, you might see that and you'll understand these games a lot clearer because it can help with the mindset of it all. Anyway, we've French showing the bishop here, as you see. Already, as we've gone through the Queen's Gambit, how they attack the king side here. Now, even though the pawns have kind of got this, it's all been simplified, so it's not really a set way to go, because technically there's 2 pawns that way, but there's also 2 pawns this way, so it's not really a sort of change here. Now, bishop to d7, not the best move by Bobby, but is still alright, and as we can see, the evaluation bar hasn't really changed from 0.1 to minus 0.1, it's always been about the same there. Now again, these rooks getting in the centre, they're all following principle at the minute, no silly moves here. We're already way past we're close to an endgame already here because the queen's off the board. Just a few too many pawns, I would say, to be an endgame. So, he's now causing an attack here, Boris Spassky, with knight to e4, attacking this knight and putting pressure, in the centre. And if we just have a little look here, of the 4 pieces on each side here, white has a much better 4 pieces, because all of them are doing something, whereas these 2 bishops are struggling. They're locked in place and also blocking this rook here, so not very good on Bobby Fischer's end. But a few captures later, this bishop goes to a4, attacking the rook. Obviously, they're going to block here. They can move the rook and try and double up, but I do think they lose a lot of power with these sort of double open files here, or semi-open files. An exchange does happen, and Bobby Fischer trades rooks here, so he can get this open file. Now the kings are coming into play, as we see here. Now the knight jumping into the centre, Bobby Fischer's trying to retain his, trying to get all of this back. More trades here, as you see. Bobby Fischer liking to swap off. I think he's swapped off pretty much all of the pieces he can so far. Queens, rooks, that. But when it goes to a World Chess Championship, most of the time you'll see draws happen a lot, especially the most recent World Chess Championships. You'll see them always draw and have, few wins. That's probably what also happened back then a few times, but honestly, Bobby Fischer hated draws. So what he would do is try to get all the pieces off the board and try and win from here. But sometimes that can cause a struggle. And there's a few captures here, and this is the most famous move here, because bishop takes h2 leads to a great move by Boris Spassky, and the classic where he puts his hands on his head is g3, blocking in the bishop, because if he tries to go here, he gets blocked by this king here, and it's not got enough time, and we will always try and win it back. So here, it can't move anywhere, and by the time it gets to here, it can't escape, so it will lose its bishop here. So as we see here, going to king to e2, and it's trying to get there, but it's just not got enough time. As here, if it takes, we're just going to take back, and it's still the same thing, because here, the bishop's now protecting this, so it can't capture here. So he's going to lose his bishop. But the strange thing out of all of this is if we go through it all here, white is not winning by that much. Even with a bishop up here, he's still only about 0.6 up, which, if you can imagine that, a pawn is worth a point. So he's only just about winning, purely because of how connected Bobby Fischer's pawns are. But realistically, the engine doesn't always tell, human moves. And realistically, if you're a human being in this scenario, and you're black, you're like, he's got a bishop ahead of me, and for like 2 pawns, I'm going to struggle. So as we play the last few moves out here, there's still quite a long way to go, but what this bishop does is it just creates this, complete blockade here, as they can't push the pawns here. This king in the centre, even though white's king, it can't do anything, it's still fine in this position, as this bishop is able to block everything, and slowly, as we see here, the evaluation bar has gone up to 2 points now, so it's winning hugely here. And just moves like this, a mistake again, or inaccuracy we say here, and these are the sort of moves that won't help, as Bobby Fischer here, after these captures, he then moves his king up here, as he does not realise that after this, he will be losing the game, as if he tries to block here, we're going to block our king, and this pawn will not be able to go up in time because of this move here. And it blocking it all, because the king can't come up here. It'll just hold this and hold this pawn off, and it's just going to win here completely. So again, we can play moves like this, forcing a king move, and then we can win the pawn and win the game. So hopefully you understand. What we see here is how we wanted to go over a famous game here. I hope some of you have seen this before, but what we're just trying to go over here is what we see, if we could take out a few points from this game, is that, you know, trading off pieces are good, but you've got to make sure you end it off well. As you saw there, Boy Fischer trading everything off, which was a good idea, but he executed it wrongly in the end and loses his bishop for it. And if he kept a few of those pieces on the board, he might have done better. You know, if there was 2 bishops on the board, he would have only lost one of those. He could have kept another bishop, and it could have been a draw. So he kind of puts himself in a bit of a bad position there. But obviously, as we saw there from the Queen's Gambit, we can just go back a tiny bit here. That, you know, what we saw was, it was quite a Nimzo Indian Queen's Gambit-like style. We've had this many times, and this is where we get to stuff like this. And how, you know, we'll go here. This is where all the book moves happen. And we've had this, probably all of us have had this maybe once or twice, maybe a position like this. Anyway, that's it for today's video. Hopefully you like the board setup and how we're going to be doing this every few episodes. And we're going over much, you know, still famous games, you know, Magnus, even Hans Niemann now, Hikaru, even the old ones like Kasparov, and, you know, even Karpov, Korchnoi, all of those. We'll go through who they are as well if you don't know. I think we obviously know who Bobby Fischer is, one of the greats, and obviously Boris Spassky from the Soviet Union at the time. So, there we go. Now, hopefully you enjoyed today's video. So, thank you and bye-bye.